Hello, everyone. Welcome to our next episode of Clinch AGI's AI Agents and Future of Work podcast. My name is Uday Chakravarti. I'm founder of Clinch, which is building a team of autonomous AI agents that execute repetitive and complex workflows to help sales teams close deals faster and boost productivity. Today, I'm excited to talk to Dan Ross, ex-MD of sales at Optimizely.
Yeah, hi, my name's Dan Ross. I've spent most of the last, it's like 13 or so years doing various go-to-market leadership and RevOps leadership jobs for mostly software companies based out of California. And for the last 5 or so years, I've been a independent advisor and consultant, helping companies unlock their go-to-market growth and get from one stage to the next.
Awesome. That's great to hear. And we'll kickstart with something that's very relevant today, and a lot of sales teams are starting to talk about is the role of AI in sales. And there is a huge, I would say, opportunity with AI for sales, and more companies are now trying to understand, how AI can help them. So let's start with, the first question is, how have you seen, AI transform sales processes in the last few months that, the companies that you're working with? Can you share a few examples where AI has had the most significant impact on their teams or growth?
Yeah, I might share a little bit of a story or some context here because I've been working in this world for so long now. But in the last 5 years, I've probably worked with 30 different businesses from sort of founding level through Series D or E even, from a handful of folks to well into the several thousands. And even today, just in the last several months since you asked, as I look across the companies I'm working with, there are some that are really pushing the boundaries of AI adoption within not just a sales team, but as a company as a whole. And then there's others who it's like some bolt-on thing that's happening off in the corner to help them, generate marketing content or, send spam emails or whatever. And I look at the velocity and the effectiveness of those different ends of the spectrum, and it is incredible to see. And this is really like only in the last, I'd say 12 months has this spread really manifest. Like in the past, there were like sort of pre this current era of actual AI tools, there were a lot of people who had adopted a bunch of software, and it by its very nature only kind of lived in the corner. Really operationally rigorous companies would maybe be using like some sort of like Notion workflow or Trello or something to like keep track with some interesting triggers, and maybe they have Zapier doing something over here. But what I'm seeing today is that there's like a massive divergence happening between companies that are doing this well and companies who aren't.
Yeah, I think some of the things that AI is really good at is understanding the context from data, whether it's structured, unstructured data. AI is very good at research, summarizing, and some of the, I would say, more recent use cases we've seen is around AI SDRs, with a lot of like messaging. While I think it's still to be seen how effective that is because of the risk of spam, especially for like mid-market and enterprise companies, because they obviously don't want to send such messages to their customers. So I do think that, we're just scratching the surface here with what we have seen so far. And there's a huge opportunity with AI, that goes beyond just those prospecting messages.
That's actually an interesting one because I think as we go, we're going to sort of see like good use of AI, bad use of AI, or AI as like a crutch for bad process or strategy or execution. And the AI SDR one's a really interesting one because it's really lowered the barrier to entry for people to send a high volume of messages, which unfortunately is drowning out the higher quality prospecting or outbound or SDR efforts. I have a couple of friends who run inside sales teams or inside sales outsourcing organizations, and they've seen their open rates and their response rates plummet over the last year.
Yeah.
Even people who do this like career level prospecting, they're having trouble cutting through the noise just because it's so easy for anybody to just send out a huge number of emails, and the tech is getting good enough to navigate spam filters.
I'm also getting a lot of calls these days, AI calls, AI reps calling, and it's very easy to figure out whether it's a human or not. And the challenge I have is, and I've spoken to a few more folks in sales as well. And can AI really help you with buying decisions? When you're talking to an AI, it has limited context about your business. It's not really, it doesn't understand emotions quite well. So there's always a question that how well this will be used. And I would not be surprised if you have new regulation around it soon where you cannot talk to an AI rep without getting consent. And then a lot of the companies that are really trying to do this AI SDRs or
Hmm.
AI phone calls, etc., will really have to stop doing that. So I do think that there's something going on there. So let's switch gears and talk about AI adoption. Now, obviously,
Mm.
there's a huge potential for AI as we can see, and AI agents are really becoming, I would say, quite popular in that area where they go beyond just repetitive tasks, where understanding the context and being able to take decisions and actions in a multi-step format. Would love to hear your thoughts on what you are seeing in terms of like AI adoptions. What are some of the biggest challenges same sales leaders face when adopting AI tools? And how do you think leaders would overcome that?
I think most of the ones who are struggling are thinking too small. They're thinking often in terms of like maybe some of the like marketing they're seeing from some of these AI SDR like point solution type type products where they're thinking, oh, I can use AI for this specific use case or that specific use case. The ones who are really competent are building their own GPTs to coach the team, to go through call transcriptions, to even just like automating weekly sales team meetings, those sort of
Mm,
things. Like that's a huge amount of overhead for either the reps and or the sales manager. And just some of the back end operational stuff, like what are we talking about this week? What do we want to like do a group learning on? How do we distill notes
mhm,
from all the, dozens or hundreds of calls that we had in the past week or couple weeks into
mhm,
something that we can do some coaching on? There's a huge amount of administrative overhead to
mhm.
any modern sales team. And and I've seen a couple of sales leaders really effectively utilize AI to offload that burden for themselves from themselves.
Um, yeah, that's a good point you bring in, especially in the sort of like the mid sales pipeline process wherein you have AEs who now have a few deals and they're starting to essentially close deals. And these are some things that can help a sales leader perspective. Yeah, great. But from a rep perspective, where do you see some of the opportunities, especially let's say you've already started conversations with a prospect. Now, how do you see AI helping them close those deals faster? Because
Mm.
it has access to everything, right? It has access to your CRMs, it has access to your conversations you've had, all the emails, so it knows. It also has access to the sales cycle. So keeping all that in mind, any sort of opportunities you see in this space that AI can help reps?
Yeah, we're finally at a point where a lot of the, I'll just say computer or software generated like coaching recommendations can actually be useful. Like in the past, they were pretty much looking for like CRM data gaps,
Mm,
like, oh, you don't have a next step scheduled, or, your last meeting was this, or whatever. Now we have enough data sources from the call recording to the emails and calendar invites and all of that context for all the other deals as a benchmark that they can start to be useful. But I even going back to what I was saying about the administrative burden,
mhm,
companies hire for salespeople, they hire sales humans to be persuasive, right? It's their job to sort of bridge the gap between the product and the marketing content that exists
mhm.
and what a potential customer is experiencing on the ground. And then
Yeah.
we saddle them with all these other tasks and distractions and
Mhm,
burdens. And so I actually see a lot of the AI helping one with like the coaching, like help make sure I don't miss something, but also just offloading a lot of the back office work,
mhm,
crafting messages, building decks, making sure little things don't slip through the cracks so they can actually focus on doing what humans are still best at, which is persuading other humans and having human to human conversations. And, and so I don't want to overlook that as well because I coach a lot of reps in a lot of different companies, and a
mhm,
universal pain point is I'm being asked to do too many things in my
mhm.
day, only
Yeah.
one of which is actually driving revenue. And the more we can utilize AI to get them back to the things that make human salespeople special, the better I think every organization is going to be.
Totally agree with that. And I think it also is in line with a research article I saw where sales teams are spending, less than 40% in actually um, activities that can generate revenue or talk to customers. And a lot of this is around updating CRM systems or, just trying to do a lot of research before they engage with customers. So, and
Mhm.
those are problems that AI can solve very easily. So yeah, I do think there's a lot of opportunity in that space for sure. Um, Now the next thing I wanted to chat about is looking ahead. We're just scratching the surface with the potential of AI, and AI is only going to get even the models that are being powered. Like if we look at some of the models that were recently launched by OpenAI and Anthropic and even Google, the models are getting better and better at understanding context, generating content, etc. So it's only going to get better from here on. So would love to hear some predictions from you in for 2025. If you had to pick three things that you would see more from AI, something you have not seen maybe, or something that's better for sales.
I think the first thing I'll see is we're going to see a real difference in performance and effectiveness, right? So if you think about like we'll talk about the SaaS and venture back SaaS world for a second, right? We had a big boom that kind of ended in 2022 ish, and it was grow at all costs with near unlimited cash to grow a sustainable business at all costs with really limited cash, or at least not as free flowing as it was. And so, I think companies spent the first year since 2022 reeling in expenses, trying to be more efficient, do more with less, let's be focused, whatever. And then that coincided with this current latest AI boom. And some companies are now saying, okay, cool, we can offload a lot of this expensive company administrative burden to AI tools, agents, whatever. And I'm starting to see a convergence where it's not just a bunch of point solutions, but entire workflows and the handoffs, especially customer handoffs, because anybody who's worked at predictable revenue, traditional um,
Mhm.
sales motion knows that context is lost at every handoff, from marketing to sales or SDR to AE to onboarding to CSM or account manager or whatever. Information is lost and the workflow is clunky at best and often contingent on the two humans knowing each other well enough to like compensate for each other's strengths and weaknesses. AI has the ability and the potential to completely upend all those problems and be the conduit and the foundation for all those handoffs so that we can plug in humans as needed and make sure that
Mhm.
everybody has the context and information and collateral or whatever to do their job really, really well.
Yeah, so in terms of predictions, I have a few predictions as well, especially for AI agents. And my first prediction is more dynamic real-time coaching. Agents have become so much better now, and we are starting to see companies have ability where you can create agents that can start coaching reps in real time, understanding what kind of questions are being asked. So think about objection handling, for example, or why your competitors, if somebody says they're better than you, then you can actually have AI agents that can research this information in real time and present it while in a conversation. And that can really help you
Mm.
do objection handling. And so that's one area where I see a lot of potential. Um, the second area I would say is the ease of AI agent adoption. I think will only get better. One of the hurdles to adopting agents is, I would say, is the usability, trust, and if the agent can actually do the job autonomously. And I think a lot of companies will realize this and start build agents in such a way where it can be the trust is built within the agent itself. So it's almost like you can see, it's like try before you buy kind of a thing. So when you
Mm-hmm.
um, um, go for buying a car, you do a test drive and then you like it, then you make a purchase. So I think there's going to be a lot of that happening where agents tell you how the output is going to be like. And once the human in the loop is always there. And then once there's enough trust there, then I think the agents can do autonomous workflows more and more. And the last thing I would say is more predictive pipeline optimization. Today, if we look at a lot of the data that comes out of CRM, etc. A lot of it is reactive. Once the calls are done, for example, like maybe the end of the month, leaders will review how reps were doing, how many calls did you make, what were the conversion rate looks like. So it always happens after that, it's more reactive. So with AI, one of the benefits is AI can give you alerts or recommendations in real time about how your team's performance is doing. Maybe you have one rep that is overloaded with a lot more deals, and and he or she may not be the best rep. So AI can tell you, hey, this kind of deal, let's say a mid-market deal in this industry, you have another rep who's probably better at closing the deal, and he or she may have less bandwidth. So you can actually give such very specific recommendations to optimize and even like stall deals. Today, you might not know unless you go and look at CRM, but imagine AI can tell, hey, typically, you respond to your prospect in 2 days, but it's been 4 days now. And, this is the response that you need to craft based on the last conversation. So
Mm.
more and more of those, I would say, reactive pipeline optimization workflows that agents can enable will also be something that could be game changing for sales teams.
Yeah, and to be trained on a company's methodology process, and if they're using like a third party, approach like Challenger or proactive selling or whatever, yeah, to overlay that to make it really specific and relevant.
Absolutely. I think that's one more thing wherein you could say that most of the reps or all of the reps will have access to all the relevant information, kind of like a knowledge base or knowledge hub of the company that's most relevant to the products they're trying to sell, the persona they're looking to target, so that there's less time spent on researching and everybody's essentially using the same messaging to convey and do selling. So I think
Mm.
those are some of the predictions. And yeah, let's see how these predictions go and end of the year.
Yeah, it's going to be a wild year, and the more companies that I get exposed to, the more I'm just blown away by the creative and tactical use cases. And interestingly, like, and maybe this isn't that interesting, but or isn't surprising. So many the companies that I'm seeing like really adopting are startups, smaller companies where they don't have codified processes, so they're building AI first. They're not trying to bolt AI onto some like legacy bureaucracy and
Mhm.
help it. And startups often have a competitive advantage in when it comes to agility versus their larger incumbents, but this is only going to exacerbate that and accelerate it and take away maybe some of the inertial benefits that a larger legacy player might have. So yeah, it's going to be a really interesting year or two.
Absolutely. Yeah, exciting times ahead, Dan. And yeah, we look forward to seeing what's in store for AI agents at the end of 2025. All right, Dan. So one
So
more question I would love to learn and hear your thoughts is the state of, the AI tools. There are a lot of tools that have come up in the space that pretty much say the same thing, that AI for sales, we're the best, agentic tools. So I would love to hear your thoughts on that, and which tools do you think will win and why?
it's yet another tech, land rush where everyone's racing, kind of get to as close as they can to a monopoly as possible. And I think the ones that are going to have staying power, if you look at sort of the past couple of big software waves, when tech hit different functions, whether it was marketing or sales, the ones who have staying power are the ones who embed themselves in a company's workflow. Point solutions are really easy to adopt
Mhm.
and turn on, and also really easy to turn off. And that is, I think, a truism. And the value that agentic AI or just any Gen AI product has is, where does this fit within our workflow? And in the SaaS world, where I spend my time, the workflow is across teams. Like in the go to market function, it is not one team, and so you can make sales really really effective. But if marketing and customer success are not, or product are not operating at a high
Mhm.
level, sales is going to get dragged down. And in fact, I've been through that scenario a few times where sales got too sophisticated for the adjacent departments. And so I think the tools that are going to pull ahead, now I'm slightly biased here, are the ones that realize that the value of this space is in managing the entirety of a journey, whether that's a customer journey, whether that's a product feature journey, or even like a content creation and management journey,
Mhm.
not a point Gen AI solution. And I think there's going to be a big consolidation that happens over the coming couple of years, whether that's through acquisition, whether that's through companies sort of falling away, or company players that already exist broadening their potential set of use cases. The ones that are going to be really sticky are the ones that you can't turn off because they're deeply embedded with many things that you do.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Actually, I'm curious for you, because you're operating in this space right now. You're talking to businesses that are making investments in AI. products more broadly. How do you see, in a world where you've got multiple AI agents,
Mhm.
maybe across vendors, including some vendor supplied or internally created ones,
Mhm.
interacting with each other or intersecting with each other somewhere? Like, where do
Yeah.
you see that causing issues, friction, gaps, or
Mhm.
challenges within companies, or do you at all?
Yeah, it's a great question. You know what we have seen so far, and we talked to a lot of customers, some of them who have also started using Clinch, and the reasons that they're using it is the fact that they don't want to deal with a lot of different point solutions. They don't want one solution that does just workflows for customer success or one that does it for sales. Because at the end of the day, you're still talking about siloed products that don't talk to each other, that they don't have the same knowledge base or are plugged into the same data sources. So the context
Mhm.
is still lost. And what what I think will happen, and this is probably true more of for the mid market and larger enterprise companies, is there's going to be a lot of tool consolidation happening, and these companies don't want to really spend a lot of time building tools also because it's not really their core business to build sales or customer success tools. So what I see it happening is the companies that can create agentic workflows that go deep into one function, yes, that can really solve problems. For example, getting more specific, like thinking about an RFP agent for sales or an agent that can really understand the customer interview and then extract product ideas, create customer stories. So it's not really specific to one function, but you can see the same agent is now having an impact on multiple functions. But it's also part of the workflow. It's how teams actually operate today. So if agents can mimic that, then I think there is a lot of potential for companies to adopt that. So I do see that companies that can really, one is go deeper into specific workflows for
Mhm.
functions, but then also have agentic workflows that have seamless integration with existing tools and work across marketing, sales, and customer success. I think those are the companies that can really differentiate and win this game.
I get that. And coming from companies in the past where, I was selling a point solution versus maybe more of like a suite,
Mm.
the point solution has an advantage in that they can get really focused on a core use case. And I think in sort of past waves of technology adoption, that makes a lot of sense, especially in like SMB and mid market. But
Mhm.
so much of the because you're just developing software for different use cases, and that doesn't
Mhm.
scale. It scales linearly, it doesn't scale exponentially. Whereas with I think about go to market, Gen AI tools, like every company for, from like 2010 to 2018 was like, voice the customer, doing NPS, and everyone wants to be customer centric and all this stuff. And then they build these like siloed human functions to like manage the customer journey. And something that I've counseled many organizations on is like somebody, or hopefully at least one person, has visibility and ideally ownership of like the entirety of your customer's journey, so that it's
Yeah.
not, like an assembly line where assembly line's probably not the best. It's not like a faceless handoff from one to the next to the next. And AI actually has the potential to be that person, not just with eyes on the entire, customer journey in the abstract, like a CRO might or a chief customer officer
Yeah.
might, but actually like at a customer level, like following this one human or transaction all the way through and adding value along the way, catching exceptions, making recommendations. That is like such a massive, massive potential in the market.
Absolutely. This is great, Dan. Really appreciate you taking time to share your thoughts, insights with the audience.
Of
And
course.
we are really excited about what's coming up in AI agents.
It's going to be a wild year. Excited to be
Yeah,
a
I
part
just
of
can't wait to get started here.
it. Yeah, let's go.
All right. Thanks, Dan.
Mhm.